Good morning, everybody. It is 9 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock, and it's Common Sense Matters Day. Good morning, Miss Helen. How are you?
I am fine, and it was just such a beautiful drive getting here, looking at all the trees. It's beautiful up on the mountain.
Yes, it is.
I thought it would be done down here, but it's not.
No.
I mean, oh my God, it's just gorgeous everywhere you look. Y'all should come up to Swanee this weekend too, though, and just check it out, because it's just everything's at different stages. But yeah, it's great. So yeah, this is Common Sense Matters. This is our monthly show for the Franklin County Democratic Party, and our guest today is going to be Ben Pender, and he's running for that open seat for the school board. It was vacated by Chris Guess, who's now our mayor, and anyway, so Ben has stepped in to run. And we're just going to interview him today. But before that, I just wanted to make a few announcements. If you want to learn more about our party, just go to Franklin County, Tennessee Democratic.com. It's a long name, but Franklin County, Tennessee Democratic.com. All lowercase, all one word. And you can learn about, who our officers are, anything about us. We meet the third Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock. So if you ever want to come to one of our meetings, that's when we meet, the third Thursday at 6 o'clock, and we meet at the annex right next to the voting office, the election commission office. I also just wanted to announce, and I'm sure you all already know, that early voting has already started. This Saturday is going to be the last Saturday that they're open. They'll be open from 8 to 12. And then the other days of the week, it's from 8 to 4:30. So it's really hard to wait until the last day to vote on election day. There could be lines. That's usually not the case here, but you never know. You might get sick that day. Something might come up at work. So it's always good to just get your vote in beforehand when you know it's safe. So and the Democratic Party will be there tomorrow morning. We'll be giving out donuts. So come say hi to us tomorrow morning from 8 to 12. And we're also going to be at the Boo Bash. That's this Saturday from 4 to 6. The kids will be trick-or-treating on the square. I mean, just hearing about the Deckard parade or Halloween thing tonight, it used to be you just dressed up on Halloween.
Yeah.
Now you dress up for your school, you dress up for the Boo Bash, then you dress up again on Halloween night. Like, by the third time you put on your costume, it's kind of lost its magic. And then that's 3 times the amount of candy that you get. Whew, I feel bad for parents of young kids.
Yeah. It's a festival now instead of a holiday.
It's a week. Yeah, it's like a week-long thing. Yeah, it just seems like when my kids were little, maybe there'd be a party beforehand, but usually there was just everything was on actual Halloween. But anyway, whatever. So, Ben. Okay, so this is Ben Pender.
Hey, everybody.
Ben has lived in Franklin County his entire life. So I just wanted to know, how long has your family been in Franklin County?
Well, first of all, I haven't lived in Franklin County my entire life.
Oh, okay.
Most of it. Of course, I went off to school and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was gone. I was in Knoxville at UT, Knoxville, and then I went to medical school in South Carolina in Charleston. And so I was gone for about 8 years, and then did a family practice residency in Huntsville. So I lived in Huntsville for several years after that. So, but generally, I grew up in Franklin County and have always considered Franklin County home, and have been here, all my formative years, and I'm back now, and I don't ever see leaving. But yeah, so that's how long I've been in Franklin County. I think I'm about a 5th generation Franklin County native.
Wow.
My grandmother, Edna Pender, grew up in Cowan, around I never can remember, it's Hawkins Cove, right? And so yeah, so, and then, of course, her parents grew up there, and the Greers from Swanee and Sherwood, in those areas. So I can trace back at least 5 generations, maybe more, I don't know.
Wow.
I'm not
amazing.
Terribly sentimentalist, and unfortunately, my grandmother's passed away, and I was not able to get a whole lot of family information from her, but so anyway, so I can
So you're probably related to about half the people in this county somehow or other.
Well, Callan Montgomery Cemetery, I keep meaning to do this. I don't know how many graves there are in Callan Montgomery Cemetery. That's the one just on the outside of Callan going towards Swanee. There's probably 300 or 400 graves in there now, I'd say, and I bet you I am related in some way to at least 100 of those graves. One of these days I'll go count.
So that makes you very invested.
Absolutely,
in the
yes.
success of these kids, right? I mean, they're your people, right?
Right.
So you definitely want the best for them. So tell us about your education. You said you went to Franklin County High.
Yes.
Okay, and then UT.
Yes.
Okay, and then where else?
I went to the Medical University of South Carolina. That's in
Okay.
Charleston. That's a medical school,
Okay.
the oldest one in the South, continuously operating. And so I graduated from there in 2000, and then went and did a family practice residency in Huntsville with UAB Huntsville campus.
But now you're an engineer.
But now I'm an engineer, right? So
Okay.
it's kind of a.
So did you go back to school again for engineering?
Well, it's kind of a long story. Not really, but that in this day and age of internet and online learning and stuff like that, there's a lot of non-traditional ways to achieve education and move forward. And so I grew up doing a lot of mechanical stuff. I was always a gearhead. I was I remember
Your yard's full of cars.
It is.
Your yard's a scrap yard, basically.
Easy now. Those are treasures.
Right,
Maybe
right.
scrap to some people, but treasures to me.
He collects cars.
The only thing that scrap needs to become treasures is time.
Yeah.
And as you know, time sometimes is the most difficult thing to come by and the most easy thing to waste. So, but having said that, I remember when I was about 6 or 7, my dad came home one day with a old lawnmower engine and some tools and gave those to me so that I would stop messing around with the good lawnmowers and stuff and breaking them. So, but I've always grown up doing that and enjoyed that, and so but I've always wanted to know how things work. And so I majored in microbiology and zoology in college, and then went to medical school trying to learn how the body works. Did all that, got through residency, and realized that I'm just the way my mind thinks. It thinks in terms of like a Rube Goldberg machine. How does that work? And I want to understand all of this. And I had trouble memorizing stuff and pattern recognition and that sort of thing, which is some of the hallmarks of a good physician. I'd tell people that, when I was practicing medicine, for me, when a patient would come in and say, "Hey, doc, I've got blood in my pee," in my mind, the anatomic diagram of the kidney and the ureter and all the anatomy involved in the urinary system would come up, and I'd start thinking, okay, now if there's blood in this point, where would it be and what color would it be and all this other stuff. A good physician, though, on the other hand, when they hear, blood in my pee, hematuria, that's the medical term for it, would, in their mind pops up a list of about 10 or 15 different diseases where, hematuria is a feature. Well, I can't do that. And I realized that, even though I was able to treat, high blood pressure and diabetes and all that stuff is pretty, by the book, pretty standard, I was constantly afraid that there may be come in something that I might miss. And so every day was just a mental challenge and mental struggle, fear for missing something and, possibly, hurting somebody. So I decided it just wasn't for me. I took a break thinking I would go back to it, but in that time I ended up working for my dad and learning a lot more stuff, and then I went.
What did he do?
He was a rocket scientist, actually. He worked out at the base.
ADC.
Well, he was in Huntsville early, but then in '73 or so came to the base.
Okay.
Worked out there until '95, and then he opened his own consulting firm, and so I did a lot of kind of mechanical and fabrication work for him.
So you have a good appreciation for how kids in school, you want to honor all those different ways of thinking. See, I don't have that. I want to know how that works.
Right.
If I see something that's broken, I'm like, call the repairman.
Right, right.
So it's really great that everybody has different kinds of brains that think different ways, and we need an education system will address that, that will meet all those needs, so that's why I think it's great that we have, that the high school has partnerships with TCAT and things like that. So when you find those kids like that, you can, let them explore that and work with actual robots and machines and things like that. I think that's great. And I know that y'all are a family that's really into lifelong learning, because I see your mom taking Spanish classes at Sewanee.
Right, yeah, and she's taking
she's in her 70s now?
Yes.
Yeah, and so,
well, I didn't say that. You said that.
Okay, still learning at that age. So y'all are definitely a family that values education. Yeah, she's auditing a Spanish class, a college class, and she's not too great with technology, so I'm always having to help her. She'll come to my office and ask me for help with something or other.
Yeah, well, thank you, because I have to help her too. And my son, who's an IT guy, he does a lot of that. But yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I feel like just on what I've learned already, I think you would make an amazing school board member.
Thank you.
Just from this. I'm curious, what's the most memorable? So all your kids went to Franklin County Schools.
Yes.
How many kids do you have?
Just two.
Just two. Okay. They all went to Franklin County Schools from Cowan Elementary, then South.
Okay. So my son, he was on the spectrum, and so he needed some extra attention. And so, let me dive off for a moment and into a point that you almost got to. My son and my daughter. My daughter is a very traditional, student. Kind of, a lot like me. I like to say that, of course, my kids are very different. I relate to my son with my heart, and I relate to my daughter with my brain, because my daughter intellectually is a lot like me and kind of pretty traditional, picks things up. My son is a lot different, being on the spectrum. So, there's a much different way of approaching things, and so that he needed some extra help and was able to get that. And so he went through, we felt like smaller classes and stuff like that, more attention would be better. So he went through Good Shepherd from pre-K all the way through 8th grade. In fact, when he graduated from there, he had been there longer than basically anybody except for Miss Joy. I think Miss Joy had been there a year or two more. Yes, a year or two longer than he had.
So I feel like that's another thing that qualifies you, and that having a child with special needs, I think you would be able to appreciate maybe improving the services that Franklin County offers for special ed. And I think Franklin County does a great job. Like, I know a lot of people in Sewanee who choose Franklin County over St. Andrews or any of the public schools, because they address it better. Now, maybe when your son was there, that wasn't the case, but nowadays, I think Franklin County High School exceeds most of the private schools around in terms of offering. But I'm sure you could have ways to improve based on your experiences with your son. So that's really neat. I think that makes you a very well-rounded candidate raising a child, with that's a special ed child. I'm sorry, and I interrupted you. Were you still going on with something?
I probably was, but I've forgotten by now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So what is the most memorable, I was just asking you where your kids went to school. So what's the most memorable positive experience that you or your kids had in the Franklin County school system? What's something that Franklin County schools offered that you really appreciated, and that maybe you'd want to emphasize, what would want our schools to emphasize more? Well,
and dovetailing with that last point, one of the most positive benefits I have received, I think, or experienced in Franklin County schools was when my son was in kindergarten, and he was very late to talk. He didn't start talking until he was 5. But then when he started, he didn't stop. But that notwithstanding, the services we got originally, with the IEPs, the individualized education plans and that sort of thing, I felt like we weren't making enough progress as quickly as I would have liked, and so I asked for more and received more. We went from like 1 day a week of therapy with him to 2 or 3 days a week. It's been a long time. It's been 20 plus years now. I don't remember all the details, but that was a very positive thing that I feel that I got Franklin County schools, basically, they said, here's what we can offer, and I, asked for more and received it. And I think, it worked. And my son, of course, he's doing very well now. So I think that was a very positive benefit. For me personally, I have two distinct memories that come from Deckard Elementary School.
Okay.
The first is, in fact, I heard somebody talk about, the lack of civics teaching in schools these days, and it reminded me of my fourth grade experience at Deckard with Mr. Conley. This was in like 1979, 1980. Mr. Conley, in order to address, classroom discipline issues, decided to set up a court in class. And so in order to determine who would be judge and bailiff and all this other stuff, he created, a civics class and then, for, 2 or 3 weeks, and gave a test, and whoever scored the highest on the civics test got to be the judge, and then so on and so forth. And I thought that was awesome. I memorized everything. So in fourth grade, I knew all about the legislative branch, the judicial branch, the executive branch, and all that stuff. And I made the highest grade on the test and got to be the judge. We had a couple of courtroom sessions, and then that was it. Because
that is brilliant.
But it was great. So from that, in fourth grade, I knew all this stuff. That a lot of people.
Kids became lawyers because of that.
Maybe, so in fourth grade, I knew more about, the government and how it worked and functioned and the rationale behind it than Tommy Tuberville knew when he was running for Senate.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
so that was one. The other one was, and I actually mentioned this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, in fifth grade with Mr. Jones at Deckard Elementary. Every morning.
Larry Jones?
Yes, Larry Jones.
My kids had him. They loved
Okay, well then you may remember this. The
Miss
newspaper. Okay, I don't know if he did that. Well, so every morning he would read, and I didn't realize it at the time. I realize it now, being an adult. But every morning, for an hour or 45 minutes or whatever, the first thing we would do is he would sit and read the paper.
He did that.
And he would tell us what was going on, what he was reading about, and we had to take notes. And then on Fridays, after reading the paper, he'd give us a little quiz. And so he'd sit there and read the paper and do this, and I learned all kinds. That was 80 and 81 for me. So I remember all kinds of stuff. The 80 and 81. Because Larry Jones read the newspaper to us. I remember John Lennon getting shot. I remember, hostages coming home from Iran. I remember it's a little thing. The Brown Derby closing or burning down or something. There's a restaurant in California. It's real famous. There are lots of things that, when I hear references to now that happened during that particular school year, I was like, oh, I remember that because Larry Jones, that was in the paper.
Right. Yeah.
Now being an adult, I realize, hey, I would love to sit and drink my coffee and read the paper for an hour every morning, and so
make it educational.
And so it was brilliant on more. It's kind of like Aladdin. The Aladdin is two different movies. There's a kids movie there, but there's also an adult movie there, and so that's what this was. This was for the kids it was educational, but for him it was relaxing and reading the paper and drinking coffee. So it was great on two different levels.
Right. Well, for me, it was definitely for my kids anyway. It's at Swanee Elementary and probably at all the schools. Miss Brown, Miss Brown, who lives over there at the bottom of the mountain in Cowan.
I do not.
Okay. Well, anyway, she always did a big fifth grade musical, and so that is something that my kids will never forget. That was a great experience. And then I remember one of the art teachers encouraged my daughter to enter the duck stamp contest, and she won a prize for that, and that was a big deal. But it seems like the things that we always seem to remember are the outside the box kind of things, not just your typical day in class. And I feel like when we give our teachers freedom to teach what they want and how they want, it's just better for everybody. And I worry that in Tennessee, teachers have become so constrained in what they can teach. They have to teach to those tests. They have to. They just passed the Tennessee legislature just passed a law that every teacher has to register every book in their classroom and run it by some sort of approval morality police board before it can be taught. And I know that with my kids, if you finished and with me when I was in school, if you finished your work, you could just go grab a book off the bookshelf and read. And that is a great way to, keep kids quiet, and, reading is always good. And now a lot of teachers are just getting rid of that, just saying, it takes hours and hours. Like, they have to upload every book into some sort of government website,
Right.
and then it's got to be approved by the school librarian, and then the school librarian has to send it to the state. I mean, this is the party that doesn't want government in your lives.
Right, it's micromanaging the
It's
reading material.
micromanaging the teachers.
Well, the thing is, it's like, what are you going to do when they graduate? The thing is children that want to read, I think they'll find things to read. It's a shame that they have to go to all this trouble to make reading available to kids, but I totally get it.
But yeah, I just feel like when we give teachers freedom, another thing that my kids remember really well, and it was in 4th grade, they got to go to Shake Rag Hollow on a hike in the spring,
yes.
and then every student was given assigned a wildflower, and they had to draw a picture of that wildflower, write a report about it, and it really became very personal to them. And like, that's another thing that's just sort of an outside the box, this is our idea, it's only going to work at this school, because
Right.
some schools are in the middle of a city, so it's not like a one size fits all type thing. It's just, what can we do with where we are, and it's just teachers using their creativity. And I feel like we're really squelching their creativity by focusing so much on these tests.
Right.
And I think, if anything, the pandemic undermined those tests. They became less important. I think they waived making them do those TCATs. But I just feel like we need to give our teachers freedom to to teach how they want and teach what they want. And if what they're teaching challenges you, then that's a learning opportunity
Right,
too.
yes.
Talk to it at home about with your parents, and anyway, work it out. All right, but
Well, I agree with you totally. And a lot of people, for the last 20 years or 30 years or so, I've heard all this, let's run the government like a business. Okay, then fine, let's do that. Let's run the schools like a business. Let's, for me personally, in my position where I work at Nissan, I have a lot of freedom to try to solve problems and without constraints. Hey, if I come up with an out-of-the-box solution or kind of a clever solution or something that nobody's ever thought of, I get praise a little bit. Whereas, maybe if we did that in our school system, then, the teachers will be more inspired to do even more stuff out of the box and even greater things.
What is a negative experience that you or your kids had in the Franklin County school system, and are you running maybe to fix those problems? Like, if you'd been on the school board back then when your kids were having that negative experience, what would you have done? Can you think of anything that, that you didn't agree with? Surely everybody does.
Well, I was afraid you were going to ask me a question like that. Honestly, my daughter was a high achiever, and so she never really had any problems. My son, once he got the, specialized attention he needed, he seemed to blossom and do well. So I don't really have any negative experiences, which I think is really good. It's one of the reasons why I'm proud to live here and proud to, and have come back, because I think, I had a great childhood growing up here. Now, I'm sure that there are problems. I just personally didn't experience a whole lot.
Okay. Well, what do you feel? Do you feel like there's any problems there currently that you're hearing about that you would want to address if you were on the school board?
Well,
to me, the major problem is teacher retention.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe for you, it's something else. I don't know.
Well, absolutely. And again, getting back to kind of, running things, hey, let's run the school system like a business. Let's run everything like a business. All right, fine. Let's do that. So how do businesses retain, quality talent,
Higher
human
pay.
capital? Well, yeah, higher pay. That's always. But, I've looked at this a little bit here lately. and by lately I mean last night. One of the things I came across two figures. One figure for average teacher pay, and the range is huge, from like 28,000 to 60 or 70,000. So, but the average is at one place I saw 46, another place I saw 43.5 $1,000 a year. And then I looked around at other local Middle Tennessee districts, and in fact Franklin County is maybe $1,000 or $2,000 a little bit higher, than a lot of the surrounding areas, Murfreesboro and Coffee County and various places. Yes, now that's those are the figures I saw. I'm sure, given the wide spread of the range, that it's the standard deviation of that average is probably quite high, so it's hard to put that in perspective. But the point is that Franklin County is already doing pretty well in terms of teacher pay relative to other areas within Middle Tennessee and even into East Tennessee, and especially with regard to Northwest Georgia. So pay is, obviously that's the first thing, because, the teachers got to live, and, you got to make it so that they want to live here. The cost of living here is relatively low, so that helps too. But, in terms of, there's a whole field in human resources about human capital and how to retain and that sort of thing. And I think, one of the things that I'm not sure if we're doing this or not. And if the Franklin County School Board is doing this or some of this, then that's great. Maybe I can help push this and drive more. But basically, there's several things that I've looked at and seen for retention. Well, the first of all is expanding our recruitment base. Lots of times most school districts, they just put up basically help wanted ads on their website and maybe some other teacher or state school board type things. But, really expanding and utilizing social media, Facebook, Twitter, that sort of thing. College, the teachers themselves having references of hey, they're friends from college that, who do you think would be a really great teacher from your past, and see if you can, reach out to them. Big business does that. Twitter does that. Several other companies, one company I read about, they, every one of their employees has to create a reference database of a couple or three of their friends or people they know who are in the field and would be qualified, and put that into the company database so that they can actually reach out to those people and find that talent. So basically, you have to go out and actively search for talent rather than letting it come to you.
Right.
So that's the first thing. The next thing is, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to get pretty deep into this, but the next thing is, and again, I'm not sure exactly what the school board has been doing, but any of these things that I can help make sure that we are doing is my goal. The hiring process. Most school districts simply focus on the static documents, the teaching certificate, all the things that basically qualify, that make sure the teacher's qualified for the job. They don't really focus a whole lot on actually watching the teacher teach in class or having the teachers present a video of a sample lesson or anything like that. So the actual teaching quality or basically performance of the teacher is not really well assessed before they're hired. So making sure that we recruit, number one, widely and actively, and then making sure that those possible recruits can prove or show good performance. Those are the first two things. Then once we talking about retaining, mentoring new teachers, making sure that new teachers once they come into the system are mentored by the more seasoned, experienced teachers to help them develop professionally and allowing them to slowly gain responsibility as they kind of fit into their classroom and gain their legs.
Yeah, those are all great ideas. And I mean, I know that one thing they've already started doing is letting you get hiring you and then letting you just get qualified while you're teaching. Like my son-in-law is teaching music in the Grundy County schools, and he didn't have his teacher certification, but he definitely knows music
Right.
and can teach music to kids. And so they just went ahead and hired him, and they said, well, we're hiring you contingent on you taking
Right.
classes in Chattanooga to get your teaching degree. So, letting people do that while they're teaching instead of not hiring them until after they've gotten all that. So I think that's a great idea too. Okay, I'm totally switching topics now.
Okay.
Recently, I was on the county commission, and we were going through approving the budget for the Franklin County schools, and they had to drop their plans to build an activity center at the high school. And so I'm just curious, what was your opinion on that whole thing? Do you think we needed that after just building 2 brand new schools, or what?
It kind of comes down to funding. Where I work, lots of times I do cost studies about, we're looking at maybe starting to build a new engine or something like that, and I'm part of some of the guys that are coming up with how much it will cost to set this line up or test and all that stuff, and so I'm constantly looking at costs and that sort of thing. I think, anytime we have the opportunity to add infrastructure or assets to our county, it enriches our county and gives us more potential to do things. Now, the problem with that is that, if things are free, then yeah, that's no problem. The funding is the question. And so the fact that there were 4 people on the commission, yourself included, who voted for it, and 12 that voted against it, suggests that, it's not a cut and dried situation. So
I wasn't necessarily voting for the activity center. I just wanted the school budget to
okay,
be passed.
well, I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
I wasn't actually a fan of it myself.
Right. Okay. Well, and so my thought is so I wasn't a fan of it either. Because if the money was basically free from the government for the taking to do this, then great.
Well, it was. It was just that was free.
Right.
But it was the maintaining the building for all of eternity.
Right. Yes, and
that's what I was worried about.
Yes, and that becomes an issue too. So there's lots of times. I hate again accepting money from the government. That's supposed to be bad. But if we don't accept it, then Coffee County accepts it, right, or something. It's money that's going to be spent. So we might as well take it. But yes, with doing that, we do incur a long-term, in perpetuity commitment to maintain and heat it and cool it and light it and all that stuff and staff it and that sort of thing. So, there's pros and cons to it. The other thing is that, my thought in researching this is that, well, perhaps, and there was some concern that maybe the government might come back, the federal government might come back and say, well, the ESSER funding, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Education Relief Funding, that's what that stands for, might come back and say, oh, well, that didn't qualify, and so now you owe us $4.3 million. So there was that possible liability. So that was kind of a roadblock in my opinion too. But the thing is that maybe we could take that money, the ESSER funding, and put it towards something else that would then free up money that Franklin County had already budgeted to go to teacher pay or bus driver pay or something like that. Because I think, hiring and retaining good teachers, of course, I think is one of the primary goals that as a school board member I would be focused on, because the teachers are the tools that create the product, and the product is a well-developed educated student body. And so if we can, if we could take some of that money and do something and free up money to pay teachers better, I thought that would be a good thing. So, but generally, I think I probably would have fallen on, voting no for that ultimately.
So, okay. So you work at Nissan. What do you feel like they need at Nissan, just for example, in terms of an educated workforce? What do Franklin County schools need to do to make a good employee for Nissan?
Well, again, I sound like a broken record when I say this, because everybody else is saying this. It's the STEM stuff, the science, technology, engineering and math. Yeah. It's like, so, I mean, the thing is course, Nissan needs people. Nissan needs people to turn wrenches and to run the robots and do that sort of thing too. But at the end of the day, we also even people working on the line would benefit from more STEM type knowledge, because there's lots of things that they can do on the line with more and more robots and the computer interfaces and that sort of thing that goes along with it. But generally, like every other thing, Nissan is not unique in that highly qualified engineers who can think outside the box, and hopefully are given the by maybe having the example of their teachers think outside the box, then maybe the students graduated from Franklin County High School and Huntland High School, and maybe St. Andrews for that matter too, can have the comfort to think outside the box and do that sort of thing. But basically just strong engineering skills, math skills, critical analysis, being able to look at something and understand how it works, figure out how it works, and then try to see where problems might be or where things can be improved.
Okay, speaking of critical thinking skills, I hate to bring this up because it's just so ridiculous, and this show is called Common Sense Matters, and we like to focus on things that actually affect your life, things that are real, and common sense kind of things. But our state senator Janice Bowling has some kind of crazy belief that there is a growing crisis, and that's a quote, a growing crisis of schools in Tennessee allowing kids to use litter boxes to go to the bathroom in, because these kids identify as cats or dogs.
I know.
And I'm like, how could you believe that? How can this is our leader.
I know.
I mean, she makes sense on a lot of issues, on some issues, but I mean, I have to wonder about the critical thinking skills of someone who could actually believe that kids are going to the bathroom in litter boxes, and that would believe those rumors. And I'll tell y'all, the source of the rumor was that in, I think somewhere around Aurora, Colorado, where they have had tons of Columbine, where all that was, they put together kits for classrooms in case they go into lockdown. And so, you've got bottled water. So this is if a bunch of kids and their teacher are going to be locked into their classroom for hours on end while they deal with an active shooter situation. So they had granola bars and water, and one of the things was kitty litter,
so that go to the bathroom.
Yeah, so that they could just put it in a bucket, and if someone had to go, they could do it in that. And so it's only for an emergency. But the right wing started this rumor, and I just think there's nothing you can tell a Trump supporter that they won't believe. That it's, and even the Tennessee head of schools had to come out and say, no, this is not happening in our schools, but I just worry so much about the critical thinking skills of people. It only takes 5 minutes to go and refute something or fact check something. And how can you be a leader and spread false rumors to your constituents without taking 5 minutes to just, this sounds kind of fishy.
Well,
Let's see
absolutely.
if it's true. And I feel like we need to get critical thinking skills into our students so they don't believe everything someone tells them. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, the first time I heard about, this, it's been, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago. And of course, the first thing is I think it's this doesn't even have, this sounds nuts. This doesn't even have the ring of truth to it. I mean, if something like that really were going on, I mean, all of a sudden you'd hear about it everywhere.
You think the janitor would be willing
right?
to
Yeah,
clean
it's
up?
it's. But
God.
In terms of I don't know. We're in a strange place in this country now. We could agree on a set of facts, or we could look around and we could agree that yes, it's sunny outside right now, or mostly so. It's, at least as I look out the window, it's not raining here. I don't know about the rest of the county, but we used to be able to agree on that. Nowadays, I don't even know that we don't even seem to be able to agree on that. And the each side has their echo chambers, and they can get their everybody can go off and live in their own bias confirmation echo chamber. And so I think that a lot of the facts of what is actually happening in the country are lost. Everybody has their own version of it. And so in terms of critical thinking, I think just keep doing what we've always been doing. I know that sounds bad, but trying to teach science, trying to teach math, trying to teach things where facts really aren't disputed, and have people, I don't know.
There's a really sweet old man that I've known for a long time, and he got on Facebook, and he has been infected with all sorts of just crazy beliefs. And he was posting something saying that we are no longer allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And he believed that. And I'm like, listen to this radio station.
We just broadcast it 30 minutes ago.
Right. I mean, like, people just hear something and then they just hit share and just believe it. Like, don't listen to people on Facebook. They're probably just coming from some troll farm somewhere. They aren't people Look at what is happening in your community around you. Do you see children using litter boxes in the school? Just call Stanley Bean. Is that happening? And he'll say no. Or look around in your schools. Are they saying the Pledge of Allegiance? We say it at every county commission meeting. We say it at every Franklin County Democratic Party meeting. The kids say it at every school. Look around in your community. And when you hear a crazy rumor, is this happening? I don't understand how people can believe the things that they believe, when all around them, the facts in life are telling them the opposite.
Right.
Like, I just heard the pledge this morning on the radio, but I'm going to believe that the pledge has been outlawed because it's not politically correct or something. Anyway, it's just weird.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we have just a few more minutes. So what are your thoughts on vouchers? Because that's becoming more and more of an issue, and I know in some districts that it has been the school boards that have had to vote on whether they're going to allow them or not. So what would be your vote on that?
Well, I need to take more study on that, but my knee-jerk reaction is that I'm generally opposed to vouchers. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think vouchers siphons away precious community funds that should be going to public schools, to private schools, for frankly a lot of people in the county who wouldn't be able to attend those schools.
Right.
So I think generally, just looking at the surface of it, it seems kind of patently unfair to me, almost. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I don't even have kids in the school system, so why do my property taxes go?" It's like, well, okay, fine, you don't have kids. I don't have kids in the school system anymore, but I'm perfectly happy with my
At
property
one
taxes.
point, somebody paid for your school.
Exactly. When I was in school, somebody paid for it, and I'm paying for somebody else's kids now, which I'm totally fine with that.
That's called the social contract.
Well, right. I mean, it's we all put in for the greater good. My tax dollars go to fix roads that I don't drive on. I mean, does that mean that my tax dollars should be allocated only for the roads in front of my house? I mean, I won't lie, I'd love that, but that's just not the way it is. I mean, we have to at some point think of the greater good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, with those vouchers, I think each family would get roughly $5,000 to send their kid to a private school. Most private schools cost more than $10,000 a year. And so you're only really helping families that have an extra $5,000 around or more. In the case of St. Andrews, it's $15,000. So you're only helping families that have an extra $10,000 to send their kids to school. So you're taking away money from the public schools and giving it to families who already have a lot of extra income.
Yes. So it's kind of it's a reverse, an inverse regressive tax. I think. It damages, I think, the public schools that the lower income people rely on.
If just 6 kids leave a school and take away that $5,000 from the public schools, that's a teacher's salary. Also, yeah, I meant to say, if anyone has a question for Ben, please call in. Well, actually, we're fixing to go. But that might be a call. But, okay, so you would probably vote against vouchers.
I would, but again, in my job, I have to look at all the angles and consider as much as I can, and I would do the same thing for that. And you mentioned about people calling in. I have a fairly open mind. I have my own opinions, and I inform my opinions, the way I've always done. But I'm open to listening to constituents, and so I pledged that I would go into any discussion with an open mind and listen. And so if the constituents, and I can publish my number.
You got a call.
Oh, I do. Okay.
From a constituent.
Well, maybe you're going to hold me to what I just said.
Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi there. I wanted to ask Mr. Pender what his feelings were and how would he vote and respond to transgender athletes using like the dressing room, a 14, 15-year-old male using the dressing room of 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. Also, the accommodations of the bathrooms and that sort of thing. The problem that I don't think we have it in our area right now, but it is certainly an area of problems in other places in the country.
Well, thanks for your question, and that is a very difficult situation. In fact, I think that is probably, in thinking about all this, I've thought about that, and I think that is probably the most touchy and difficult situation to address. And honestly, again, like every other issue, I'd have to study it more and understand, if there's a particular situation. But, I think kids, we have to let our kids be who they are. And, for the most part, I was born a male, and I'm happy being a male, and I'm so comfortable in that. And so I can understand how if somebody is born a male but they're really a female and they're trapped in the wrong body, how uncomfortable that would be. So I can definitely empathize with someone who doesn't feel like they were born the correct gender. How to handle that in the school system, the easiest way, of course, would just be to have a unisex bathroom separate from the boys and girls bathrooms, and allow them to use that. That might solve a lot of problems, but then again, it also might create some other problems. But that would kind of be, at least right now, that would be my standpoint on that. In terms of trans athletes competing,
that is a really tough issue.
Genotypic, athletes who are genotypically male, meaning born with XY chromosomes, competing as on women's teams. I mean, there's lots of.
It's very unfair.
It is unfair, and we talk about, I go back to the late '90s and the home run race in baseball. There's a lot of asterisks that are beside Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and all that stuff now, because they broke all kinds of records, but they were juiced on steroids. So does that really count? I don't know, but I think. Yeah,
that is a very touchy issue and a hard issue, but the thing is that the right wing has people focused on that as if that were the biggest thing on earth. It affects, the people who would be affected by that are 0.001% of the population. It happens so rarely. But what is affecting everybody is teacher retention.
Right.
Is, funding our schools. I like to focus on things that affect 99.9%
right.
of the people. 99.9% of people are perfectly happy with their gender. And,
right.
That's just not even an issue for them. It's just like this 0.001% of the population. Why are we putting so much focus and worry on that? I really think this is just a fad, and it's
right.
going to pass.
Well,
I realize that there have always
yes.
always been trans people, but it's just not something I think about or worry about. I think about the big issues of school, like teachers getting to teach what they want, the children being succeeding and being
that's
funded.
certainly fine, I thank God we don't have that issue here. But I would think that there are people who have lost their jobs because they complained about the shared dressing rooms. We've had, and of course we all well know that there was a young lady that was raped by this guy in his skirt, and you can't deny that did not happen. So I realize that 99.9 people are maybe happy with their gender, but for those people, I guess it does make a difference.
Yeah, I think it does, and there are 2 points I want to make. One to you, and one to Helen's comments, and that is to Helen's comments. I would say yes. In my job, we look at what we call the heavy hitters. Let's solve the 3 problems that cause 99% or 90% of our defects, and just kind of ignore for time being the other 22 things that cause one-time defects. So to Helen's point, I think yes, this is something that's so small, and to your own admission, is not really an issue here right now. That's not to say it won't become an issue, but now and then to your point, I understand where you're coming from. I think that a lot of people conflate transgender with some sort of sexual violence, and I think transgender people are just like anybody else. They don't have any more or less proclivity to violence than anybody else. So just because they're transgender doesn't mean that they're automatically trying to go into the girls' bathroom to rape girls.
They're more likely to be the victim of violence.
Exactly.
They're more likely to be beat up.
Exactly. So, but at the end of the day, we have to have a solution.
I just happened to think of one other thing that was not the issue that I called about, but I did think about the term that you two used just a little bit ago when you were talking about the school and the building, the proposed building, and each of you used the phrase free money more than one time, and I have to disagree with you on free money. There is nothing free. That free money came from taxpayers' money.
No,
I really wish you would rethink the free money, because there are always strings attached to, I'm making air quotes, free money.
Well, exactly, and we made that point subsequent to that, which was, maybe we get, and I'll address my concept of free money. That we if we took this quote unquote free money and built a building, there are commitments to that, to heat it and cool it and all that stuff that's going to cost us. So yes, there's consequences to that. My definition of free money is money that's out there that is going to be given to somebody. So, if this ESSER funding is out there, and, let's just say, pick a number, say it's $4 million. So say the federal government says, okay, Middle Tennessee, I've got an extra $4 million, I'm going to give it to somebody. And Franklin County has a chance to get it, and if Franklin County doesn't take the quote unquote free money, then Coffee County gets it. So, it's something that's out there, and I realize it's taxpayer money,
though. I'm sure you do, but to use the phrase free money, because every grant, everything that comes from the government is from my pocket, your pocket, everybody's pocket, if you pay income tax.
Right, and so
you have made a donation to that free money.
Right, so basically, since it's from my pocket and your pocket, if we have a chance to get it back, I'm going to try to get it back.
I think it would be better if you would say grant money instead of free money.
That's true.
That's just my opinion, and my opinion only.
No, and
it's
I
true.
agree
It's
with
not
you.
an opinion.
It is grant money.
Yeah. We are out of time now, but
thanks for your call too, please.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and please vote for Ben Pender for school board. I think this guy makes a lot of sense.
I try.
And anyway, have a happy Halloween, everybody, and we'll be back the fourth Friday of December. Oh, maybe not fourth Friday. Maybe back fourth Friday of January. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
means $100 million in investment and over 100 new jobs. The investment will improve the Grand Prix-style racetrack known as Flat Rock in Westall. Construction is already underway, and the club track